If you've watched my channel for any substantial amount of time, you might have seen this house behind me in a couple of videos before. And just like yesterday's video, and I was telling you if you want to sell your house now, this is your chance. Well, this is a perfect example of what not to do right now. Because this house, okay, has been listed for sale for over 1 year, guys. Not a joke, okay? It listed for February 2021, $1,350,000. Since then, there's only been a $100,000 price cut, okay? And here's the thing. The house right across the street recently just sold for $1,070,000. So quite a bit less than what this house is listed at right now. And I don't know how many offers this place has gotten, what's going on, but these guys have been thinking that they're gonna be big time real estate flippers. They bought this house for $515,000 a few years ago, turned it around and thought that they were going to be millionaires from this, and turns out nothing's happening, okay? So anybody who thinks they're going to be trying to do that right now, it's not going to work. You have to be realistic with everything. When it comes to being realistic, if you're a buyer, you need to be realistic about what things are going to cost when you buy one of these houses, guys, because it's bad enough that people overpaid for places like this, but new homeowners have been getting blindsided by all different types of costs related to owning a house that they didn't anticipate. And it turns out that 90% of new homeowners that bought a house in the last 3 years say that they were unprepared for the extra expenses that it would cost to maintain their home. Wow, 90%, guys, that's almost everyone. 73% of those people have some sort of regret about buying the house, which we're not gonna get too much into because we've covered a lot of buyer's remorse stories recently, but just know that on top of not being able to afford what it costs to maintain the house, then people are also facing regret due to other things as well. And this is proof right here that people just jumped the gun way too early and really without thinking with this pandemic home buying spree. Because look at this, only 35% of homeowners say they have no feelings of buyer's remorse after buying their home. And in 2019, pre-pandemic, that number was 65%. So the amount of buyers that have regret has gone up substantially between pre-pandemic and now. Now here's some of the costs that people are getting hit with their brand new home that they were not anticipating were going to be this high. Okay, the number one thing on this list, property taxes. And I warned people about this last year that, hey, if you're going to be buying at all-time high prices, get ready for your tax bill to double. Lo and behold, that's the biggest thing that people are complaining about. Also, renovations was a big one. Didn't think it was going to cost that much. Utilities. You guys remember my story about the water bill the other day? $700 water bill. Some of you wrote me saying, you know, you have a $300 a month water bill. That's still insane. Some of the other costs were things like roof work, maintaining the home's appearance, homeowner's insurance, appliance repairs, upgrading appliances, HVAC work, foundation repairs, HOA fees. And you know what all this adds up to? It adds up to new homeowners paying about an additional $17,500 per year in additional expenses on top of their mortgage payment. What? Now, let's do some math about this. Last week, we covered how the average mortgage payment has reached an all-time high at $2,563 per month now. And when you add in that people now have this additional $17,500 expense per year that they weren't anticipating, well, let's take a look at this. What does that break down to? All right, that extra $17,500 a year is about $1,454 a month, guys, in addition to that $2,563 a month mortgage payment. And what does that come out to? A little over $4,000 a month in housing expenses, $4,017 a month, and that adds up to about $48,204 per year. What do you know? Almost 50 grand a year, and that's just the average, okay? This is for regular median priced homes that people have bought over the past few years. We're not talking about homes here that we're looking at that are 1.2 million or anything like that. We're talking just regular price homes with this. So the other thing is, you're not supposed to spend more than 30% of your gross take-home pay on housing expenses, right? Last week we determined that in order to afford the average mortgage payment of $25.63 a month, you need to be pulling in at least 92 grand a year. All right, that's household, can be just you, a couple, whatever. That's the minimum, okay, to afford this house payment. But when you factor in that additional $14.50 a month, the house is actually eating up half of your monthly income, and that's your gross monthly income. Let's not forget that. If you're making $92,000 a year, 48 grand a year is very close to half of your gross income, which is not actually what you take home. You know, the gross is pre-tax money, guys. The gross is the number you see on your paycheck before they deduct Medicare and Social Security and your income taxes, okay? So afterwards, you're left with even less. So it's safe to say that a lot of these new home buyers are paying more than half of their monthly income, or even their yearly income for that matter, on their housing expenses right now. That is astounding. Man, is it just me, or are these flips just getting old? Here is yet another one. They bought this house back in September of 2022 for $750,000. Fast forward to today, it's a new listing, listed at $1,089,000. But at least I will hand it to the house flipper that they are listing this property in accordance with the comps, just like the one we saw at the beginning of the video, and they're much more likely to sell it than that very first house that's been listed for sale for over a year. And then you had recent home buyers that said, oh, I'll buy a fixer-upper and fix things myself. Well, still, guys, the average cost to remodel a kitchen or a bathroom is still about 20 grand. When these people were surveyed and asked, you know, where they went wrong or what they would do differently next time around, you had 57% of them said they would have approached buying a house differently if they would have realized all of the costs that would come with home ownership. And some of the things that they wish they would have done differently are, wait for it, purchase a home that requires less maintenance, okay? Negotiate a better price or contingencies on their home, or purchase a less expensive home, or here's the real kicker, waited longer to buy a home. That's what they said that they wish they would have done in order to make things right. But now they're stuck with this house and there's no way out besides selling, probably at a loss right now. And the reason I wanted to bring this up today is because one of the biggest things that potential buyers will weigh when looking at buying a home is, should I buy or should I rent? And my typical advice that I tell people is, if the cost of buying is pretty similar to renting in your area, even though the market is not in a good spot right now, it might make more sense to buy. But the thing is, basically no one will take into consideration the extra costs associated with home ownership. Just going to be comparing the mortgage payment to the rent, and that is not an apples to apples comparison here, unfortunately. And when you're trying to figure this out for yourself of buy versus rent, guys, you should be taking these numbers into the equation right now. So say you find a nice house that you want to buy and the mortgage payment is roughly the same as what it would be to rent a similar house. Well, don't forget to add that extra $14.50 a month in unexpected expenses with your house, because guaranteed there are going to be some, especially when you buy a house like this. You know, there could be all sorts of hidden problems that were not found in the inspection, and just repairs and things that go wrong, that once the ownership is on you, the entire cost lands in your lap. And obviously, if you're a condo owner or a townhouse owner, you're not immune to this either, because the HOA fees are going berserk right now, especially here in Florida. And that's something that's totally outside your control as an owner. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it besides pay or sell. That's it. So that's another big unexpected expense that people are probably not thinking about when buying some sort of housing unit right now. So I would be very careful right now, guys. I still think you're going to see a lot of people jump into this spring housing market and go out there and buy. and that's their choice. But how many of them are taking all these things into consideration that we just talked about? Probably not that many is my guess, because like we've seen with real estate, people just don't use rational thought to make their decisions. They buy houses with emotions, and sometimes out of speculation, and sometimes out of just the whole fear of missing out, because an opportunity comes along and, oh my God, I better grab this or I'll never be able to buy something again, which is just not the case. Now, refreshingly, at least this house is not a flip. They actually bought this place back in 2014 for $445,000. So selling it today for a little over $1 million is a pretty nice profit within the span of about 9 years. So not too bad, but it's another new listing, so who knows? Is the market cooling down in Miami? Because this is also right in line with that previous comp that sold for about $1,070,000, and these two houses that we just saw are priced almost identical, so it'll be interesting to see if they can move them within the next month or so. Now, how about this? This is a story that DJ sent me, talking about how you have a lot of international wealthy people that still think buying real estate in the US is one of the most solid investments that they can make. In fact, they polled 1,200 high net worth foreigners, and this is what they said. They said that 80% of them believe that purchasing real estate in the US is a safe investment, with more than 75% of them rating the US market conditions to purchase a home as excellent or good. Now, obviously they're probably comparing our market here and our prices and everything like that relative to their home country, wherever that might be. The reality is, guys, to live in other major cities across the world where home prices are high is so much higher than here in the US. You can just look at our neighbors to the north in Canada, what they're going through in Toronto and Vancouver, how much homes cost over there, and you go to Hong Kong, the real estate prices over there, Singapore, even a lot of the nicer parts of Europe are still a lot more expensive than the US, which can make what we got going on here still look like a bargain to people. And many of them are interested in our real estate also because it provides a certain type of escape for them. Because remember, these people are wealthy and they're looking to have something that they probably can't get back home, especially for the same price. And the thing is about the United States is there's a lot of diversity on where you can buy and what you can get for the money. And they see things on TV. Some of them think, well, I'm going to buy a house in the Hollywood Hills, or other ones say I'm going to have a ranch out in Montana in the middle of nowhere. And other people want to have a beachfront house or condo here in Miami because they see things on TV and it's like, wow, this is the life, you know? And apparently a lot of people can afford it, because check this out. There are more millionaires globally than there ever have been in history at the moment. And it's estimated that by 2026, the number of millionaires worldwide will increase by 40%. That's only 3 years from now, and you're talking about the amount of millionaires going up by 40%. That is incredible. But here's where the dreams of foreign investors start to fall apart, if you ask me. They say a lot of the reasons that these foreign investors like the US as well is because of the strength of the dollar compared to other currencies. And 1/3 of these rich people said that the strength of the US dollar is one of the top motivators for buying real estate here in the US right now. My thing is, as an American who's paying attention and seeing what's happening across the board right now, I wonder how long this is going to last, guys, because, you know, Saudi Arabia, they already said that they're going to start accepting payment for oil and other currencies outside of the United States dollar, which is something that we haven't seen happen since the 1970s, basically. And that's part of what's kept the US dollar so strong all this time. You have something called the BRICS nations, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia. They're all looking at ways to avoid using the US dollar altogether now for their trade. And they're starting to stack up on things like gold and silver and using commodities as their currency, as the base of their wealth, which is honestly the way it should be, and it's the way that we used to do it here in the US. And when we look at that, I'm surprised that our government and our leaders aren't freaking out over this, because you know, once enough countries jump on that bandwagon and they say we don't need our dollars anymore, you guys know what that's going to do to this country is it's going to completely destroy the dollar. We're going to see hyperinflation, because we're going to see all of our dollars flooding back into the US, since none of these countries want them anymore. And when that happens, you're going to see the price of everything completely skyrocket, because there's just going to be way too much money into the system. Which is also one of the reasons that I'm a big believer in having physical gold and silver, because that is real money. It's something that the Fed cannot print, and it's something that's still recognized to this day worldwide as real money, which can be reflected by these BRICS nations. So going back to the original part of this story about wealthy foreigners buying real estate here because they see it as a good investment and a safe investment, especially because of the strength of the dollar, I wonder how many of them actually know about this situation that's unfolding with less countries interested in trading in dollars. And, you know, I don't know how long it's going to take for that to really start affecting us here, but the fact that it's already being discussed and starting to be implemented is probably the beginning of the end when it comes to that. And I think it also goes to show that just because you're rich doesn't mean you know everything, guys, because a lot of these people who are looking at buying real estate here for those reasons alone probably have no idea about this. And if they did, they'd probably just be loading up on gold and silver instead. Now here's something interesting. This week, Biden is urging Congress to make the rules more strict and find ways to punish these bank executives after these bank collapses that we've seen over the week. He's telling Congress that they need to pass legislation that will rescind the bonuses and the stock sale gains that were collected by the executives whose actions caused the bank failures. He also wants it to be basically impossible for these people to land jobs in other sectors of banking after this. No one's above the law. Strengthening accountability is an important deterrent to prevent mismanagement in the future. So, talking is great, but whether something's actually going to happen is yet to be seen. But my thing is, it just seems like there's two sets of rules out there now, guys. You have one set of rules for the elite that can perform these criminal acts and get away with it with no punishment whatsoever. But if you or I were to do something like this, they would be putting you in jail for a life sentence. I guess it's good Biden saying this, but whether anything's actually going to happen because of it is yet to be seen. But my guess is probably not, because when you look at how fast they acted to bail out all these rich people, then it pretty much goes to show you whose side they're on with this. Because otherwise, if they really wanted to enforce the rules, they could just say, well, you had more than $250,000 in the account, tough luck. Better luck next time, guys. That's the FDIC limit. But we know very well that that's not what happened. And speaking of that, you know, there's a lot of talk about how, oh, taxpayers aren't going to have to pay for this, you know, it's not going to cost us any money, don't worry about it. And that's not true. And here's how that's not true. They say that most of the costs will be covered by the proceeds the FDIC receives from winding down the two banks. Any costs beyond that would be paid for out of the FDIC's deposit insurance fund. And this next part is the part to pay attention to, because this is the part that shows you how we're all going to end up paying for this. If necessary, the insurance fund will be replenished by a special assessment on banks. And though the costs of that assessment could ultimately be borne by bank customers, it's not that clear how much money will be involved. What are you talking about, guys? Think about this. When you have a house and your insurance premium goes up, who pays the higher insurance premium? You or your bank, the mortgage lender? You do, right? So if banks are being charged higher insurance premiums for FDIC moving forward, who's going to pay? Them or you, their depositors? We know from experience that when businesses face higher fees or higher costs of operation or doing business, what do? They don't absorb it. they pass those costs along to their customers. And that could be in the form of paying you less interest, not like most of them pay any interest anyways, or charging higher overdraft fees, or the higher monthly account maintenance fees that they charge poor people that don't have enough money in the bank. Whatever other scam fees that they can come up with, probably new fees that they'll likely implement to cover these higher insurance premiums, are going to get passed along to you and me. Who are who? The taxpayers. So yeah, the government could come out and lie and say that, oh, this isn't going to be coming out of taxpayers' money. Well, it might not come out of the actual money you pay to the IRS, but it is definitely coming out of the money that you put into the bank. And personally, I stopped banking with the big banks years ago. I only have one account left with Bank of America, but besides them, I don't have any other bank accounts with the big banks anymore. And the reason was because of the fees, guys. You know, my favorite bank for personal banking is Discover Bank. It's a fully online bank. This is not sponsored by them either, by the way. I just really like them because their customer service is fantastic. First of all, you can call and within less than 60 seconds, you can be speaking to a real person from the United States, which is extremely rare with any company nowadays, let alone a bank. Try that with Bank of America and let me know your hold time, all right? And the second thing is there's no fees. They don't charge any of these BS fees that all the big banks charge. You know, there's no account maintenance fee, there's no overdraft fees, there's none of this other crap that these banks charge. And the only fee that I know that Discover charges is a fee for wire transfers, which is something that all banks charge for last time I checked. So that's it. And how many of us do wire transfers on the regular, you know what I mean? So saying that taxpayers are not going to be affected by this or be paying the bill in the end ignores the fact that providing insurance to somebody who didn't pay for insurance is a gift. And that's not right, guys. You're going to see a lot of other small banks. You know, you'll have a bank, some tiny little bank in Oklahoma, where their depositors are going to be paying for this Signature Bank and the Silicon Valley Bank failures in the form of higher fees somewhere or another. So the big fat lie here is, yeah, it's not coming out of taxpayer money, so they can say that because it's not actually coming out of the treasury funds, right, to pay for this. But you as a depositor in the bank are ultimately going to pay for this. And like I said, this is going to be on us. When I first covered this earlier in the week, and it is a big fat lie to say that we as the public are not going to shoulder the burden for this, because you can be 100% guaranteed that we will. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.